Welcome to Sleepy Chronicles. Settle into your bed. Pull the blankets close. Let the silence of the room wrap around you like a heavy, comforting cloak. Tonight, we journey deep into the shadows of the 11th century, to a secretive order known as the Hashshashin, the original assassins. We are not here to talk about quick blades or grand adventures. We are here to witness the heavy, exhausting reality of men who completely surrendered their free will. Men who traded their identities, their names, and their very existence for a quiet, lonely waiting in the dark. We will explore the ontology of a shadow. What makes a man erase his own reality to become nothing but an instrument of another's will? Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. Let your chest rise and fall. Let's step into the cold, silent past. Imagine the Elburz Mountains in ancient Persia. It is bitterly cold here. The air is thin, crisp, and bites at the skin. The wind howls through the jagged, unforgiving peaks, carrying nothing but the scent of ancient dust, dry earth, and isolation. High up on a seemingly unreachable cliff, carved directly into the gray rock, sits the fortress of Alamut, the eagle's nest. From the valley below, it looks like a natural part of the mountain, a silent, imposing structure that watches the world with blind, stony eyes. The reality of life inside these thick stone walls was painfully slow. It was a life defined not by action, but by a crushing, endless monotony. The men who came here were not born killers. They were not monsters. They were often lost souls, tired peasants seeking refuge from starving villages, wandering students of philosophy looking for a definitive truth in a harsh, chaotic, and unforgiving world, young men seeking meaning where there was none. When a weary traveler finally arrived at the heavy, iron-reinforced wooden gates of the fortress, he was not handed a weapon. He was not given armor. He was handed silence. Absolute, crushing silence. Life inside the stone corridors of Alamut was a cycle of endless study, rigid discipline, and grueling mental conditioning. The physical environment itself was designed to break the ego. The cold stone floors sapped the warmth from their bones, reminding them of their fragility. The narrow, unlit hallways offered no comfort, only shadows that stretched and danced in the flickering light of isolated torches. They spent countless hours from before sunrise until deep into the freezing night, sitting in dimly lit, freezing rooms. They were forced to read ancient texts, to memorize complex theological and philosophical arguments until the words lost all meaning. They learned the languages of their enemies, not to communicate, but to become invisible among them. They were taught to observe, to watch the way a merchant walks, the way a beggar holds his hands, the way a guard blinks. There was no glory here, only the heavy, suffocating weight of absolute obedience to the founder Hassan-i Sabbah. He was a master of the human mind. He understood the fragile nature of belief and knowledge. He did not want independent thinkers. He did not want men who questioned the nature of reality or morality. He wanted empty vessels. He wanted men whose personal identities were slowly, systematically erased, day by day, hour by hour. Every personal desire, every memory of a mother's face, every dream of a quiet life by a river, all of it had to be stripped away, until nothing remained but a quiet, chilling devotion, a void waiting to be filled with the Master's command. Think for a moment of the profound, crushing loneliness of this existence. To willingly give up your own name, To accept that you are no longer a human being with a past or a future. To become a faceless instrument, a living weapon for an old man living isolated in a tower. There was no camaraderie among the initiates. You could not trust the man sitting next to you in the freezing library. Conversations were limited. Friendships were dangerous attachments to a world they were supposed to leave behind. They lived in complete emotional starvation. It was a quiet, melancholy existence. A life spent preparing for a death that was not only inevitable, but actively desired. They were taught that their bodies were merely temporary prisons, that the physical world, the cold stone, the biting wind, the hunger in their stomachs, was an illusion. And to escape this illusion, they had to be willing to stop breathing on command. Let the weight of that isolation settle into your mind. The feeling of being completely detached from the world, like a single forgotten stone in a massive dark wall. Safe but entirely alone. Listen to the imaginary wind howling outside the fortress of Alamut. Let it lull you deeper into relaxation. How do you convince a human being to willingly walk toward his own destruction? You do not use a whip. You do not use the threat of pain. Fear is a clumsy tool. Fear makes a man hesitate. Fear makes his hands shake when he needs to be perfectly still. Oh. To make a man embrace death, you must offer him something far more dangerous than pain. You must offer him an absolute, beautiful, and unquestionable illusion. You must break his understanding of what is real and what is a dream. According to the whispers that drifted across the deserts of the medieval world, Hassan-i Sabbah, the old man of the mountain, understood the architecture of the human mind better than any general or king. He knew that the tired young men in his fortress were emotionally starved. They were frozen by the cold stone, exhausted by the endless theology, and desperate for any sign of warmth. Imagine one of these young initiates shivering in his dark cell. The master summons him. He speaks to him with a soft, hypnotic voice, telling him that his loyalty is about to be rewarded. The initiate is given a drink. A thick, sweet, heavy liquid, masking the bitter taste of hashish, opium, and secret mountain herbs. Drink it slowly, the master says. Let the heavy burden of the world fall from your shoulders. Within moments, the cold stone walls of Alamut begin to blur. The rigid lines of the fortress melt into soft shadows. The young man's eyelids become incredibly heavy, too heavy to keep open. A profound, irresistible lethargy sinks into his muscles. He cannot lift his arms. He cannot feel the cold floor beneath him anymore. He is falling gently into a deep, dark, dreamless void. And then, he opens his eyes. The sensory shock is overwhelming. The biting, freezing mountain air is completely gone. Instead, the air he breathes is warm, thick, and humid. It smells intensely of blooming jasmine, crushed rose petals, and sweet incense. He is lying on soft, silken cushions, not hard rock. He can hear the gentle, rhythmic sound of water flowing from marble fountains. Soft, melancholic music plays in the distance, drifting through the leaves of strange, exotic trees he has never seen before. He looks around, his mind floating in a chemical haze. He is in a lush, hidden garden. Beautiful companions approach him, their voices like whispers of the wind. They offer him fresh figs, dripping with honey, and silver cups filled with cool, sweet wine. They tell him that he has passed the test of the mortal world. They tell him he has crossed the threshold of life. He is told that this is paradise, the promised heaven. For a man who has known nothing but cold, hunger, and brutal discipline, this is not just physical pleasure. It is profound, absolute peace. The philosophical questions that tormented his mind are silenced. The struggles, the fears, the crushing loneliness of existence, all of it is washed away by the warm water of the garden. He is safe. He is finally, unconditionally loved. He spends days in this suspended reality, believing with every fiber of his being that he has reached the ultimate truth. But the cruelest weapon of the Hashshashin was not the dagger. It was the awakening. The sweet drink is offered once more. The heavy sleep returns, pulling him down from the clouds. When he opens his eyes again, the silk is gone. The warmth is gone. The smell of jasmine is replaced by the smell of damp earth and old dust. He is lying on the freezing, hard stone floor of Alamut once again. The psychological devastation of this moment is impossible to measure. To have tasted absolute perfection, only to have it ripped away and replaced by a cold, gray reality. He weeps. He begs. He is confused, his mind shattered by the contrast. The master approaches him, looking down with calm, uncaring eyes. The master explains that he had indeed been granted a visit to paradise. His senses did not lie to him. But he was brought back because his duty in the mortal world was not yet finished. There is only one way to return to that garden, the master whispers. There is only one way to sleep in that warmth forever. You must give your life in my service. You must become my blade. When you strike the target and the guards cut you down, you will simply wake up back in the garden. Forever. The brainwashing is complete. The young man is no longer a student. He is no longer a peasant. He is a ghost. He is a hollow shell wandering the earth, motivated not by anger or politics or gold. He is motivated by a desperate, heartbreaking nostalgia for a dream. He does not fear death anymore. He craves it, because death is the only door back to the illusion. He has surrendered his reality for a promise. He is ready to become an assassin. Let that heavy realization sink in. The tragedy of a mind trapped in a beautiful lie. Let the thought of that slow, heavy sleep wash over you. Breathe in and breathe out. The true weapon of a Hashshashin was not the hidden blade, nor the poison in the cup. The true weapon was time. Once the master in Alamut whispered a name, the chosen initiate did not simply rush into the night with a drawn dagger. He began a journey that would test the absolute limits of human endurance and patience. He would leave the freezing mountains, traveling hundreds of miles across deserts and through bustling medieval cities like Damascus, Cairo, or Baghdad, carrying nothing but a terrifying secret and a memory of a fake paradise. When he finally arrived at the city of his target, the most agonizing phase of his existence began. He had to completely shed whatever was left of his identity. He had to become a phantom. He had to become someone so incredibly ordinary, so painfully boring, that the eye would just slide right over him. He might adopt the persona of a humble rug merchant in the dusty bazaar, a quiet monk wandering the streets, or most dangerously, a lowly servant in the very palace of the man he was sent to kill. He had to build a lie so perfect that he himself almost believed it. Imagine the crushing psychological weight of living this fabricated life. Waking up every single morning before the sun rises, sweeping the same stone floors, fetching water from the same well, bowing to the same guards. Days turned into weeks and weeks bled into months. Sometimes an assassin would live undercover for years. Every smile he gave was a calculated performance. Every word he spoke was heavily guarded. He could not form genuine friendships with the other servants. He could not allow himself to fall in love. He was surrounded by people, yet he was the most isolated creature on earth. He knew that any connection he made would eventually be shattered by his own hands. He lived in a state of constant, silent tension. In the quiet hours of the night, lying on a thin straw mat in the cramped servants' quarters, he must have stared at the dark ceiling, listening to the slow, steady breathing of the men sleeping around him. Men he was deceiving. The silence of the night was not a comfort to him. It was a heavy reminder of his purpose. He was a walking ghost, patiently watching the slow ticking of a clock that only he could hear. The sheer monotony of his daily tasks was a deliberate torture, a stark contrast to the explosive violence that awaited him at the end of his road. He had to watch his target closely. He observed the vizier or the general as they ate their meals, as they laughed with their families, as they prayed in the mosque. He studied their routines, their weaknesses, the exact placement of their guards. He integrated himself so deeply into the fabric of the target's life that he became an essential, invisible part of the background. A trusted cupbearer, a reliable groom in the stables. The target would look right at him, perhaps even thank him for his service, completely unaware that he was looking into the eyes of his own inevitable end. This required a mental fortitude that borders on the unnatural. To hold a deadly purpose inside you while projecting nothing but absolute docility and servanthood. He had to suppress every human instinct, every flicker of emotion, waiting for that one singular moment. A moment that he knew would also be his last. The patience of the Hashshashin was a quiet, suffocating blanket that slowly covered the target, long before the dagger was ever drawn. Let the image of that slow, silent waiting fade into the darkness. Feel the heavy passage of time. The slow sweep of a broom on a stone floor. The quiet drip of water in a palace courtyard. Let the slow rhythm of that endless waiting guide your breathing. Slower and slower. The day finally arrives. Not with a sudden shock, but with the heavy, quiet inevitability of the setting sun. The order from the cold mountains of Alamut has reached him through invisible, silent channels. The agonizing wait is over. The phantom must now become flesh, just for a few fleeting seconds before disappearing completely. Imagine a bustling Friday afternoon in a grand medieval city. Perhaps the massive courtyards of the Umayyad Mosque, or a crowded, sun-baked bazaar. The air is thick, almost suffocating, filled with the scent of roasting meats, exotic spices, and the heat of thousands of moving bodies. The noise is a deafening roar of merchants shouting, animals braying, and the rhythmic chanting of prayers. This chaos is the perfect stage for the Hashshashin. They did not desire the quiet dark of a bedroom for their work. They needed the blinding light of the public square. The target emerges. A powerful vizier or a conquering general, adorned in heavy silks, surrounded by a ring of fiercely loyal, heavily armored guards. He walks with the confidence of a man who believes he controls the world. The crowd parts for him like water. And there, hidden in the very fabric of that crowd, stands the assassin. He might be wearing the dusty rags of a beggar, or the simple, faded robes of a wandering mystic. His heart does not race. His hands do not tremble. He has spent years systematically killing his own emotions, There is no fear left inside him to cause a physical reaction. There is only a profound, chilling emptiness, waiting to be filled by the memory of the garden. As the powerful man passes, the assassin steps forward. He does not run. He moves with a terrifying, deliberate calmness. Time seems to stretch and distort. The roaring noise of the bazaar fades into a distant, muffled hum. The world slows down to the pace of a single drawn-out breath. He slips through the ring of guards like smoke passing through fingers. He draws the dagger. A simple, unadorned piece of cold steel. He does not swing it with rage. He places it with the precision of a surgeon, fulfilling the grim geometry of his dark duty. The strike is made. But what happens next is the true horror of the Hashshashin, the element that froze the blood of kings across the world. The assassin does not turn to flee. He does not try to vanish into the narrow alleys. He stands perfectly still. He drops his weapon onto the dusty cobblestones. He lowers his hands to his sides, relaxes his shoulders, and slightly raises his chin, exposing his neck. Chaos erupts around him. The vizier falls. The guards scream in rage and terror, drawing their heavy swords. The crowd surges back in a violent wave of panic. But the assassin remains a pillar of absolute stillness in the center of the storm. He is already disconnecting from the physical world. As the guards descend upon him, as the fatal blows begin to fall, he does not register the pain. He does not cry out for mercy. Inside his mind, the cold, dusty stones of the bazaar are already melting away. The screaming of the guards morphs into the gentle, rhythmic sound of flowing marble fountains. The smell of dust and iron is replaced by the overwhelming, sweet scent of blooming jasmine. He closes his eyes and takes one final, deep breath. He believes, with absolute, unwavering certainty, that when he opens his eyes again, he will be lying on soft silk. He is not dying, he is waking up. He is returning home to the illusion. His body collapses, just another broken vessel on the ground. The physical act is over in seconds, but the psychological shockwave will echo for centuries. The crowd is left in a state of absolute, paralyzing shock. They have witnessed a man who was utterly indifferent to his own destruction. They have witnessed the terrifying power of an idea that can completely erase the basic human instinct for survival. The master in the mountains has spoken, and the message is written in public blood. Let the image of that chaotic square slowly fade from your mind. Replace the shouting with the gentle rustle of leaves in the night. The heavy tension is broken. The release has come. The breath leaves the body and a profound, heavy silence takes its place. Sink deeper into your mattress. Let your limbs feel heavy, heavy as stone, resting in absolute peace. The physical body of the assassin is gone. The marketplace is eventually cleaned, the crowds disperse in terror, and the sun sets on a changed world. But the true work of the Hashshashin has only just begun. The blade was merely a messenger. The real weapon was the terrifying idea left behind in the minds of the powerful. The ghost of the assassin proved to be far more dangerous than the living man. He had successfully planted a seed of absolute, suffocating dread in the hearts of kings, viziers, and conquering generals across the medieval world. These were men who commanded armies of tens of thousands. Men who could conquer cities and reshape maps. Yet, because of the silent order from the mountains, they found themselves completely powerless against the shadows in their own homes. The Hashshashin had achieved the ultimate psychological victory. They had turned the comfort of power into a relentless, agonizing torture. They had weaponized the night. When a ruler retreated to his private chambers, dismissed his guards, and lay down on his silken sheets, the silence was no longer a comfort. It was a threat. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of a curtain in the wind, sounded like the approach of a phantom who did not fear death. Consider the great Sultan, Saladin, a man revered for his military genius and chivalry. Yet, after surviving attempts on his life by the hidden blades of Alamut, including one terrifying night where a poisoned dagger was left pinned to a warning note right beside his sleeping head, even he was broken by the paranoia. He could no longer sleep in a normal bed. He ordered the construction of a specially designed wooden tower, elevating himself above his own guards. He spent his nights tossing and turning in that isolated wooden box, trusting absolutely no one. The men who brought him water were suspects. The guards who swore to protect him were potential executioners. He lived as a prisoner within his own immense power, his nights stolen by the invisible reach of the old man of the mountain. For the Hashshashin, this widespread, crippling paranoia was their true monument. They had made sleep an agonizing vulnerability for the masters of the world. But like all empires of fear, their time eventually ran out. The relentless march of history does not spare anyone. By the mid-13th century, the earth shook not with the quiet steps of assassins, but with the thundering hooves of the Mongol horde. Hulagu Khan, sweeping across Persia, did what kings and sultans could not. The impenetrable eagle's nest, the mighty fortress of Alamut, was surrounded, besieged, and finally broken. The cold stone walls that had held so many silent, brainwashed young men were brought down, tumbling into the dust of the valleys below. The master was gone. The grand library of Alamut burned, its ashes scattering into the freezing mountain wind. The magnificent, illusory gardens, whether they were real physical places or simply drug-induced dreams, faded into myth and legend. The order of the Hashshashin was wiped from the earth, leaving behind nothing but whispered stories and a name that would haunt the dictionaries of languages they never spoke. Their terrifying patience, their dark philosophy, and their profound isolation were swallowed completely by the slow, heavy sands of time. And that time is far, far behind us now. Hundreds of years have passed. The dust has settled over Alamut. The kings and their fears are gone. The long, agonizing wait is over. You have traveled through the dark corridors of their history, but you do not have to stay there. You are returning to your own time, to your own room. Feel the softness of your pillow. Feel the heavy, comforting blanket resting over you. You are completely safe. The shadows in your room are just shadows, cast by the gentle moonlight. There is no one hiding in the dark. The silence around you is not a threat. It is a warm, protective embrace. There is nothing you need to watch for. There is no one you need to wait for. You can let go of the day. You can let go of the history. Let your breathing become incredibly slow. And out. Let your mind drift away from the cold mountains, away from the ancient cities, and into a deep, dreamless, and profoundly peaceful sleep. Good night.